All right, now, as I move into a refined brush layer, and I started with my mixer brush, and then I used my kind of speed painting on top of that. And now I'm going to lock that speed painting layer, make a new layer on top, and this is going to be refined painting. I'm going to go kind of section by section, use my navigator, kind of look at different areas like the face there of the bear. And you can see the photo reference, especially online photo reference, isn't always so good. And I get to improve upon it by making my own painting. But first I'll kind of put in those colors, roughly. And as I get more and more confident of what I want, I'm able to increase the opacity of my brush and just finish off the painting to the desired level. Now in my own digital painting, I don't like to move between lots of different brushes. I like to just kind of stick with one tool, get used to it, really make it work. But if you're fighting against what your brush is doing, you definitely want to be aware of that and know how to modify it. And a lot of that can just be done through the brush settings here. And my favorites are just under shape dynamics. But if you want more subtlety, you can play with other things like texture. And just try different variations as you go. Okay, so now I've got enough of it blocked out. I think I'm ready to take my opacity up, maybe take my brush size down. And start finishing it off. And I've resisted the temptation long enough, I'm going to start putting in the eyes. And I get to kind of build little highlights. And some different color around where what I think the eyes should look like. Because it's not clear in the reference, I get to pretty much make it up. So I'll start them kind of red. Little highlight here. A little blue and purple around them. You always want to have a darkest dark established, so you can pull from it for your shadows. Don't forget you want to use kind of a full value range. And the reason I love the tablets and the styluses so much is the amount of pressure you put on the stylus really can be expressive, just like it would be with a brush. And so when you need to get into tiny little nooks and crannies, you can be a lot more sensitive and subtle with your choices. And every once in a while I like to throw in kind of a weird color, something from the palette up here. It's just really strong that I can kind of mix from and react to. Doesn't mean they always work, but it keeps the whole painting process a little bit more interesting. We're not just trying to reproduce a photograph, right? Then the teeth, I like this big yellow tooth right there. Put that in, but maybe make it a little bit brighter. It's got another one on the other side. It's got the little row of pink teeth underneath. And it's good to have some color variation. If anything's too flat and too opaque, it's just going to look like a pattern instead of something dimensional. You can darken around the gums. A little bit of the blue coolness to the shadow. And then the pink purplishness of the gums. And once you've done digital painting with a stylus, you'll never want to do it any other way. I haven't let myself try the really expensive Intuos tablets because I don't want to like them more than what I'm used to. But they make so many nice technologies now for making this process feel more intuitive. Like the touch screens that are pressure sensitive. And most professionals that do a lot of digital painting for their work actually use touch screens that you can use any kind of drawing implement on. So if you want to use a brush, you just pick up a brush, you use it on the screen, and it can recognize that pressure, make those exact marks. Maybe someday we'll have that in the lab. Now, it's good to have your navigator on. It's good to not only be zoomed in all the time, because it's all about choosing a level of finish that you can bring to the whole image, right? And so if I focus all my time on the face, then it's going to be at the expense of the rest of the image, just because I don't have the time to bring that level of detail to everything else. So it's better to have kind of an even level of finish everywhere. So before I get too far in the face, I want to make sure the navigator that nothing just looks completely underdone, underserved. And yet at the same time, I want to make sure that there's nothing that bugs me about any one area. And that's how I can get to kind of a professional level. A level that I'm happy to have in my portfolio. Now, organic textures, the reason we're doing animals or people for this project is organic textures are a lot more forgiving. We don't need to put them exactly where they need to go. Whereas if we were painting a helicopter or a car or anything man-made, I couldn't just dash off brush strokes like this. Everything would have to be very carefully placed. But all of that can be done digitally as well, mechanical things as well as organic things. There's no limit to what you can do with these tools. Okay, so as I start working away from the details of the nose and the eyes and all those very strong focal points, just giving a little bit of texture, I can make my brush a little bit bigger. I can allow the pressure sensitivity of the brush to mean a little bit more. And just like I was doing with the mixer brush, I want to be really aware of the direction of my brush strokes and that it helps communicate the form as well. I am not trying to hide all my brushstrokes. I'm trying to use them to make the image more compelling. Same thing with my colors. I'm not trying to hide strong color choices. I'm trying to use them in interesting ways to make the image more compelling. That's what digital painting is about. And don't be afraid of value in putting down darks and then blending them back in. The worst thing you can do as a digital painter is be too timid. It already takes long enough. But just what you might learn in a painting class, when I say add darks and don't be afraid of them, that doesn't mean just putting down black. Instead, you generally want to always mix your black from other colors. Whether it's a mixture of a deep blue and a crimson, like alizarin crimson, an ultramarine blue in like a basic painting class, or whether it's a deep brown instead of black, or a deep purple, or a green, that you kind of mix yourself and steal from yourself with your colors. That's going to make your darks a lot more compelling than just making the values darker. And that goes for your highlights and your midtones too. So my highlights, I try to choose either warm highlights or cool highlights for different areas. I don't try to just let it be neutral. Okay, so this part of the mouth, I think I need to kind of define more. I'm going to have to make that up a little bit because my reference is too vague. So I do that with value, and I'll do a lot of squinting, kind of see how everything's falling together. Now, often when you're doing digital painting, it doesn't feel like you're making a lot of progress because it takes so long. But then when you turn off your layer, you realize, wow, okay, yeah, I've just done a lot. It helps. I'm getting where I want to be. And don't always stay zoomed in, look at the big picture as much as you can. Remember that shortcut of holding down spacebar and being able to move around. You can also use the navigator for that if you don't want to bother with the spacebar. And try not to get stuck in specific details too much. So now as I'm moving away from the head and the face, I can use my bigger brush. Try not to be too limited in what I'm doing. Try to keep kind of higher opacities as I go. And being bold. It's my interpretation of the bear. It's like the dude says in Big Lebowski. Sometimes the bear eats you, sometimes you eat the bear. So as the digital painter, you want to be in full control of your subject.